Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 59. Azric smeared his cheeks in blood. Deep within a temple to the brutish god, Azric moved through the motions. He rose from his kneeling position and turned to face a group of priests and high-ranking onlookers. Giving his blessing, he left the temple, his retinue in tow. As he stepped into the street, flowers were blowing in earnest to strong gusts of wind. The entire street was a deep bright red. Thousands of flowers littered the ground like a velvet carpet. Strong bands of gold wrapped about his shoulders and down his cape, marking his station to onlookers everywhere. During the 20 days of fire, commoner and noble alike could exchange words with no consequences. It made for some very interesting street shows, as the lower-born chose this special time to woo the higher-born that they fancied. Lewd comments trailed a high lady as she made her way through the street farther up. She met them with a quick wit and a sharp eye. Azric wondered if she was enjoying this chance, this blending of barriers. A wealthy merchant threw himself before a young commoner woman. He professed his love hotly, and promised to send gifts and asked for her hand. Some were gracious when faced with such advances. Others knew better, what they truly disguised. A brief novelty for the wealthy. Half of the game was in tricking the commoners of this new life they would lead. All promises would be promptly forgotten once the bedsheets cooled, or the festival ended, Azric thought in passing. An odd people. A structure of life built on lies and decadence and hidden lusts. It felt no different than the high courts. He smiled indulgently, making a slight wave of his wrist for his attendants to follow him, and come forward with his traveling box. 12 strong men strode forward and lifted his miniature pavilion up to the knee height so he could climb onto it easily. Several women in pleasant gossamer silks waited for him, eyes dark and modest. He turned aside such thoughts, but a show of indulgence allowed him to present a false weakness. A useful thing to have, that. If an assassin thought him weak to temptation, they would not realize their error until it proved fatal. No sense in playing his full hand. Not yet. Smiling, he thought of Kalian. He had received word that the rogue would be returning to Kaliapos by fast ship within days. Perhaps he had tired of carousing and gambling in the free cities. He could have even traveled as far as the blinding city of Azar. Stepping into the mobile pavilion, Azric leaned back into the soft cushions, holding his hand out peremptorily for a goblet of spiced wine. One of the women in the cushioned area rushed to obey, as the group of men lifted the poles and raised them into the air. Azric mused as his procession led its way through the city streets. It was important to be seen by the merchants and bourgeois classes. The commoners crushed in behind them to catch a view of him as he passed. When a commoner moved too close, the higher classes carefully edged away, not wanting to dirty their fancy clothing. Any other time of the year, an errant commoner would be met with a switch of a wooden cane if they didn't move too quickly. The summer festival truly broke all bonds. Kalian had loved this time of year. Azric remembered trailing with a young man through the city, mostly watching his friend as he made wild advances on noblewomen. Where most would have earned a cold look or a biting word, Kalian had garnered his share of wicked smiles, hinting at the promise of more to come. Azric had been struck dumb with Kalian's talents. Kalian had also been a great lover of the arts. He had spent all his extra coin lavishing them upon the great theater houses. Azric had personally found them to be a bore. The only play that had ever held any interest to him had been a tale of betrayal and intrigue. Lacio, the minor character whose voice had poisoned the ear of his lord and set him on the course to destruction, was his favorite. It reminded him of the great game of the high courts. What truly interested in him was how to manipulate those around him. He ached to be back again in the great city of Khaibar. Lowering his head in resignation, he lay back, ignoring the imploring purrs of the women who surrounded him.